You can run, and you can hide. You can duck, and you can cover. But nowhere is safe from the Astra Militarum Wyvern. Let's talk tactics.
Anvil of War! Let's talk tactics!
Astra Militarum Wyverns are a heavy support option for your Imperial Guard forces. They are long-range anti-infantry fire support. So you're going to want to have them at the back, you know, what you do with artillery. There's not much to say about that. Stats-wise, they are on a Chimera chassis, so they have base 12-inch movement, strength 6, toughness 6, and 11 wounds. They do have a degrading profile, so keep that in mind. Other than that, they have your basic Imperial Guard firing stats, so they're hitting on 4s, you know, as you do with giant mortar launchers. Weapons-wise, they have their main weapon, which is the quad Wyvern Stormshard Mortar launcher, which sounds really cool on paper, but is a really long way of saying they're real good mortars. 48-inch range. Each barrel is a D6, so the weapon has 4 D6 shots. 48-inch range. Strength 4, so your basic strength 4. No AP, and only 1 damage. But you can ignore line of sight when you're shooting them. And they also have a really cool thing where they get to re-roll all of their failed wounds. So that's where the damage output on this weapon really starts to shine. So 46 shots, strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage, no line of sight, re-rolling, failed to wounds. Perfect for shredding light infantry. So other guardsmen, your basic, even Space Marines to an extent, they still get their 3-up save. But with volume of fire, you're going to be picking off some of them. The chassis weapons, you have a heavy bolter, which you can then swap for a heavy flamer, but if you do that, you're wrong, because the heavy flamer is way more expensive than the heavy bolter, and you are hopefully never going to be in range to use the heavy flamer. It's a tiny bit of anti-charge protection, but a 36-inch range heavy bolter, even if your mortars are firing at something over there, your heavy bolters will still be able to shoot something forward. There's no penalty for shooting all the profiles, nothing like that to worry about. You got your smoke launchers if you, for some reason, don't want to shoot that turn, which is, again, you're doing it wrong. Otherwise, they're a fantastic unit. I love them. They recently had a bit of a renaissance in the Astra Militarum lists that we're getting at. So you're starting to see them more and more on the field when you're getting your Loyal 32 with the Knight Valiant or the Castellan showing up. Well, it's always a Castellan, let's not kid ourselves. When the Castellan shows up, the Wyverns are now providing anti-infantry support for the Knight, which they're really good at. I can't stress that enough. They are, in my opinion, the best anti-infantry artillery that the Astra Militarum Imperial Guard has access to. You're going to have some people arguing that their points, they can be a bit pricey, but you do have them on the Chimera chassis, so at full health they're moving 12 inches. They can't fall back and shoot, but if something's getting up, they can scoot away 12 inches, fire with a penalty, but at least they're out of harm's way. So looking more into running your Wyverns in your forces, I run them as Talarn because Talarn vehicles can move and shoot without penalty to heavy weapons. So these guys, I can scoot all over the board and still fire at their standard ballistic skill. Another popular choice is Catachan for those valuable number of shots rerolls, because there's nothing worse than having 4 D6 shots and rolling 4 1s. Other factions work, obviously, well. I've seen Armageddon is a really popular one with them. Character-wise, the only character I ever really park with them is the Master of Ordnance, the artillery commander, little elite lad, because he lets you reroll 1s to hit with your artillery as long as he can see who you're shooting at. So you kind of park him up on the building. Mine has a sword that he's pointing forward, so he's kind of like, shoot over there. and that gives them some rerolls. There are, other than that, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who I park with them for rerolls and things like that. They already reroll all failed to wounds, and getting to reroll their ones to hit is incredibly valuable on them. Again, Catachan for more rerolls, and Talarn for no penalties, Armageddon for a bit more durability, things like that. Army composition-wise, like I mentioned earlier, they have one role, which is anti-infantry, and they do it very, very well. They're a vehicle squadron, so you can take up to 3 and then drop them in one big blob. I tend to just run 2 for point reasons, and also like 8d6 is enough for me. But you can always shoot more if you want. There's really no alternate niche for these guys. I don't recommend using them as like blockers for charging or holding objectives where they can't fire at anything, like if it's too far away. You really want them to be safely in the back in a position where they can just freely unload ordnance at targets. If there's no infantry available, just bombard a light vehicle. You're wounding on 5s or 6s, but if you can get those chips in, maybe bump something down a bracket to help you later on, things like that. They should always be shooting. You should always, every chance you get, have these guys firing as best as you can. So something that works really great with these guys is the Emperor's Wrath Artillery detachment for Vigilus. Wyverns, Basilisks, things like that. You pay your 1 CP, you get the Specialist Detachment. The Lord of Ordnance Warlord trait, so you get your Field Commander, you give him the Lord of Ordnance. What that means is, on these guys, when you roll a wound roll of a 6 up, it increases the AP to -1. So they have 0 AP base, you wound roll of 6, you get an AP -1. Keep in mind, they can re-roll all their failed to wounds, so you're much more likely to generate those 6s to get the increased AP. The relic that goes with that Specialist Detachment, the Orbital Tracker, lets you pick a model, and that model then ignores cover. So if you have a group of enemy Marines hunkered down in a building with a 2-up save, you're re-rolling all your failed to wounds, your AP goes up 1, and they ignore the cover that the Marines are in. Giving them that 4-up save is going to be huge for wiping out those dug-in squads. This pairs really well with the Stratagem for the Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company Specialist Detachment, which is the Pounding Barrage, which is as efficient as it is viscerally named. The Pounding Barrage lets you pick an artillery piece and fire again with it. So again, like I said multiple times if you were paying attention, 46 shots with your little dude who lets you re-roll your 1s to hit. Boom. You got re-roll failed to wounds with this little dude. 6s cause an additional -1 AP. You're firing again. You got your Orbital Tracker for ignoring cover. You can see how the damage output on this model multiplies the more of these things you add on to it. Stratagem-wise, again, Pounding Barrage is just crazy good, because let's say you fail to wipe out that big orc squad, and you know they're going to green tide you. You poundingly barrage them with that stratagem. You wipe that unit, no more green tide coming back to haunt you. The other stratagem for the Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company Specialist Detachment from Vigilus is Suppressive Fire, which I find a bit counterintuitive for this unit, but situationally it could be useful. You pick a unit, an artillery unit. That unit does not fire, so no shoosting. You then target an opposing player's unit. That unit can no longer fire Overwatch, looking at you, Tau, and they have their movement for the next turn. So again, situational, but it could let you make someone more vulnerable than they normally would be. It's 1 CP, situational. If you're trying to get your Bolgrins into melee, maybe, there you go. Other stratagems worth mentioning, you have your Aerial Spotter. So for 2 CP, you pick a unit and it lets your artillery re-roll all failed to hits. So instead of just your rerolling 1s with the artillery commander, or the master of ordnance, sorry, you get to reroll all your failed hits. Really good for picking off like a vital target, and it stacks really well with their reroll failed to wounds, pounding barrage, all of that stuff. It stacks up, so you can see, again, like I said before, the damage output really increasing. Other stratagems to consider, you have the Vostroyan Firstborn Pride, +1 to hit. So instead of hitting on 4s, you're hitting on 3s, plus your rerolls, plus your reroll the wounds, so on and so forth. And then the Cadians also have a strategy that once you deal a wound to a unit, other units get to reroll hits against that unit, something like that. For the most part, I can't really say more than this is a really good anti-infantry artillery unit. It's not really multi-purpose. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility. It is what it says it is on the tin. I believe they're really cool looking and they have a good place in my army. I was running Wyverns before they were cool. That's probably not true. But yeah, so great anti-infantry artillery piece. They look good on the tabletop, decent movement state, lots of possibilities for stacking crazy reroll effects on them if you want to draw your turn out longer and slow play your opponent into a miserable defeat. Otherwise, yeah, there you go. Shoot stuff across the table with exploding Stormshard Mortar shots. Till next time.
Sponsored by...
Thanks for watching, guys. Quick shout out to Zach from Brushfire Studios for doing an amazing job painting up these wyverns. If you like this video, if you enjoy seeing Talarn and you want to see more of Zach's beautifully painted models in future videos, like, share, subscribe, click all the buttons. See you later.